right, and we are live. Hello, and welcome to the Writer's Room. This is Let's Write, a podcast where we take some, let's say, interesting prompts from movies and TV shows and do our best to break the story and form them into workable screenplay concepts. I'm Ryan Matsunaga, and joining me are my fantastic co-writers, Peter Holmstrom.
Hello there.
And Julian Rose.
I'm going to go with Jub Jub Jazz.
Jub Jazz.
Being the Ewok friend that we're all familiar with, hopefully.
Thank you to everyone tuning in on Get Vocal and through the simulcast. A quick reminder that we are raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation this weekend, and our lovely moderator, David, will have a link available in the Get Vocal chat where you can donate. And I believe Get Vocal is matching all donations up to 30%, so that's really fantastic and a great way to get involved if you're open to supporting that. And if you are watching via the simulcast on Facebook or other platforms and want to participate in the live chat, I recommend you hop on over to the Get Vocal stream, as we'll be taking suggestions for prompts and pitches throughout the show. All right, let's get into this. You guys ready to go? Julian, Peter, feeling good?
Let's do it.
I'm all ready. Can I just say before we get started? Now this is podcasting.
Oh boy! All right.
No.
Is it too late to back out of this? Can we
look at this
for another time?
He hits us with a "this is podcasting" and then immediately sips out of the back of Anakin's head.
Oh my god, so smart.
I'm the coolest person here. You all know it.
So let me go ahead and boot up our patented story generating algorithm for our first randomized pitch of the afternoon. And as it warms up, might I just say some of our listeners recently have been throwing around some very baseless accusations that our algorithm is actually just a spreadsheet and a random number generator, to which I say to you, yeah, how dare you? And you will be hearing from our lawyers.
Frankly, that's libel. Or wait, which one? Slander. That's slander. Wait, did they write it or did they say that?
Look, could a spreadsheet make these high-tech algorithmic sounds? Boop, 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 boop. I don't think so. All right, Julian.
That's as algorithmically sounding as I could possibly imagine.
Can you get us started, Julian? Let's write a Star Wars story set in or around the sequel trilogy. Incorporate Coruscant for me. And I'm so sorry. Okay, so if we can knock this one out of the park, the rest of this is going to be a walk in the park. Can you incorporate for us a time travel angle?
Okay, sequel trilogy.
In or around the sequel trilogy.
Centered on Coruscant. And then
it has to have something to do with time travel.
Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna take place more in the gritty underworld streets of Coruscant. Obviously, this is post. Can I, because it's sequel trilogy? Does that mean I can kind of play with the 30 years after Return of the Jedi, or do I have to be firmly planted in?
I would say, like, let's say a year prior to Force Awakens, a year after Rise of Skywalker.
Okay. So let's say that so Coruscant is obviously rebuilding at this point because it was the seat of the Republic, and then presumably until I guess maybe Episode 4, the seat of the Empire before they disbanded the Senate. So we'll say this planet has been having it pretty hard, and I think as a way to sort of to get Coruscant back on the map economically, a company kind of takes over, a corporation takes over Coruscant and develops this artificial intelligence technology, and it's starting to grow more and more rapid. It's growing more and more intelligent as the days go by, and it gets to a point that it eventually overtakes the entire planet and then starts to spread itself out and becomes self-aware and starts to destroy everything. And so they have to send an agent back in time. So we're in a new timeline now at this point of the Star Wars universe, and I'm 100% just taking the best pieces of Terminator, but just inserting it into the Star Wars universe. But I'm like not opposed to the idea of Terminator through the lens of the Star Wars galaxy. So I think we have an alternate timeline, and we send the resistance at that stage becomes the resistance and the First Order join forces in this timeline to combat the existential threat of this droid intelligence, let's say. And they send agents back in time to the gritty underworld streets of Coruscant, and they have to go kill the guy who created the technology that would spawn this alternate timeline. to keep things in the timeline that we're supposed to be in for the Star Wars universe. That's where I'm gonna at least start, and then you guys can break it down for me from there.
All right, I'm really vibing with the Terminator but Star Wars angle. I like that a lot. I I'm wondering if we could just kind of go all the way with that without getting sued and actually have it kind of intersect with events from the prequel or original trilogy, kind of iconic moments, and yeah, kind of do a little bit of an endgame sort of situation where you get to see that from a different angle. Let me pitch this to you. Let let's take an angle of a little bit more of something that feels connected to the core kind of Star Wars canon, like the Skywalker saga canon.
Sure.
What if, stick with me here, if in the aftermath of Rise of Skywalker, the Sith Eternal fleet has been shattered, but their agents are still out there. They're still looking for an opportunity to revive or resurrect or bring back their glorious leader Palpatine. What if New Republic agents have heard rumors on the edge of the galaxy that there are some strange events that seem to be affecting the laws of space and time. And as they arrive, they realize that Starkiller Base, when it was activated during The Force Awakens, it was so powerful, it used so much energy that it actually ripped holes in the space-time continuum. And that region has caused some instability in kind of the physical reality around space and time. And Sith Eternal agents have figured this out and are sending back a team of agents to essentially, like, I don't know, kill Luke Skywalker or something and rewrite the timeline so that Emperor Palpatine was never killed in the first place, in Return of the Jedi, and essentially to recreate their own the universe in their own image. And maybe Terminator style, the New Republic forces get one shot to send one agent back after them, and we gotta get like a Terminator sort of plot where he has to protect the Star Wars equivalent of John Connor in the past, and we get to see maybe some iconic events from the Star Wars canon in a little bit of a different light.
Can we? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
No, I'm sorry. Please go.
No, I was just gonna say, can we send Finn and Poe / Finn and Rose back, and can they be the agents that get sent back? And
that could be very fun.
We get to watch them traipsing through the greatest hits of the Star Wars canon.
I have to agree with Radar Technician. We should send Ray. That's what we need to be doing.
We are not cowards. We'll send Ray.
let me just take your pitch, and I'd like to pitch a little bit of a tweak to it, because we can't forget the spiritual aspect of Star Wars.
Sure.
Right? This is what differentiates it between Star Trek and every other sci-fi franchise. So what if we do a little bit of this? Our main character is actually one of the Sith. He is one of these Sith agents who are on this journey, and it's already been established in Star Wars Rebels that the land in between, the Force land. There's a word for it. I know there's
world between worlds.
World between, yeah.
The world between worlds. Sure. Yeah, there's a technical term. I know. Don't hate me, but that allows for a certain amount of time travel. So it becomes a mission to actually get to that place for these Sith Lords. That's Act 1. They actually do get back and are able to go back in time. But along the way, you have a main character who is learning about the light side of the Force. And in his journey to attain this spiritual plane, he's having to embrace all these different aspects of the Force that the Sith have always rejected in the past. You have Rey, who's your other character, who's the villain of the piece, right? Who has been sent back in time. She's able to do it very easily because things come easily for her, and she comes back in time. She's a bit of the Kyle Reese character, but she becomes the romantic interest for this main character. At first they're foils, they're fighting, and by the end of the movie they are having to join forces for a potential second movie.
Interesting. All right, getting a series going. I don't mind that.
A Star Wars time travel trilogy.
So I don't hate this idea. I think it's pretty fun. I think it'd be very hard to get off the ground, just given the canon altering ramifications of this. But let me pitch you a potential alternate angle, because I'm listening to all this, and I'm really loving the idea of kind of being able to explore the Star Wars canon throughout the epochs of time. But we don't necessarily have to send people just backwards, right? What if we did like a Back to the Future 2 sort of scenario where we're also seeing the future? Here's my alternate pitch for you guys. What if in this Star Wars time travel story we have these New Republic agents, Rey, Finn, Poe, whoever it is, they get sent back after these Sith Eternal agents, but it's time travel. They don't know how it works. What if the Sith Eternal agents got sent backwards into the past, but our heroes, the New Republic agents, got sent forward into a past or a future that had already been written by the Sith Eternals meddling in a timeline. So this future that they end up in is the future in which the Sith Eternal is successful in establishing the eternal rule of Palpatine. And so they end up on, I guess we need to fold this in now, Coruscant, the capital of this new Sith Empire, in a potential timeline where Palpatine rules all known time and space and whatever. He's the all-powerful ruler. And they have to figure out a way to travel back in time and unwrite that.
That's kind of cool. That's got so it's the Final Order timeline essentially, where the
Yeah,
Final
right.
Order takes over the galaxy. That's kind of because that could have elements of a not chase film. What's the term I'm looking for that genre? Like a man on the run, man or woman on the run sort of genre, like elements of like a Winter Soldier, where it's
sure,
like sort of they're racing through the underbelly of Coruscant and they're just trying to stay one step ahead of this crazy reality that they've landed themselves in until they can figure out how to get back and sort of fix things. That's fun. I think that's really
I like
fun.
the idea that if this new Sith Empire or this new Palpatine run empire was cognizant of the fact that time travel is plausible or possible in this universe, because that's how it began in this timeline, that Palpatine, being the raging narcissist that he is, would essentially be like, I'm not content with ruling one galaxy. I want to rule every galaxy. I want to rule every possible timeline there is. So he's been spending the duration of what we would consider the original trilogy and sequel trilogy, developing a way to purposefully travel through time and space. And his plan is now to go like invade the original timelines, the other multiverse of timelines, and conquer all known space and time. So it's this space and time spanning story where our group of heroes has to stop the eternal rule of the Sith, not just in this universe but in every universe.
That's fun.
This was really fun. It feels like it could be a bit wackier than Star Wars maybe usually is. Like it has the opportunity to be a little bit playful, like that segment of Endgame, where they kind of play fast and loose a little bit with the established canon. And given that canon is so important to Star Wars, it seems like a fun opportunity to just sort of like just sort of mess around a little bit and have a little bit of fun doing it.
So what you're saying is Jar Jar is our main character.
Oh, look, it could happen. It could happen.
No? Yes. I'm for it.
Before we move off this idea, do we have any potential pitches for a title? What would feel Star Wars and also time travel, I think, is the tricky part of that.
Yeah, I feel like there's something clever and funny in the sort of like back to the future, but it's like back to a galaxy far, far away, or like you're going forwards but backwards to a galaxy that's far, far away a long time ago, but forwards. like there's something potentially really, really annoying. That's the silly angle.
Well, I hate to. This is absolutely Colin Trevorrow who gets credit for this, but it feels like because we're dealing with different timelines and there would presumably be confrontation between these multiple timelines at some point, the title Duel of the Fates would fit very well.
Because it's like the two kind of potential fates of the universe battling it out. A universe of freedom or a universe of the Empire. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Duel of the Fates, a Star Wars story. Yeah, it's got a good ring to it.
All right, let's move on to our next pitch. Peter, why don't you start this one off? I am booting up our patented algorithm story generator.
Very real algorithm.
Peter, could you give us a Star Wars story, make it about Boba Fett? You can set it between either trilogy, but it has to be a rom-com. Market research is telling us that rom-coms are about to come back in force. Star Wars got to ride that trend up.
Oh man!
All right, this feels like in between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. It feels like Boba Fett in the original trilogy. He's hard, he's cold, he's the badass, right? How does one get to be that badass? Well, usually someone has their heart broken, torn out, and just shriveled into little pieces. So it feels like in between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, you have this kid. He would still be a teenager, right? Like he'd be a teenager, and he ends up buddying up with let's go with Asajj Ventress. Let's do that. Let's go down this road. Yes, I know there's a certain canon inconsistency. Maybe she died, but whatever. Let's say she's alive here, because she's awesome. And Asajj Ventress, last time we see her, she's like a punk rocker, dark Jedi character who isn't really a Sith. She's not really. She's on the run. She's kind of a mercenary character. So you have her and Boba Fett, and they have to team up for a specific mission of some sort. And you play that out. You play out the romance angle. Here's this girl. She's a few years older. Boba's a little into her, but she's just like, what are you talking about, man? I've been there. I've done that. I'm not interested. You with your helmet, whatever. I'm not. But Boba keeps on being into it. And
it's got
the trick would be finding a mission that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's got like Bonnie and Clyde vibes a little bit.
I like
it
that.
Has Bonnie and Clyde, yes, absolutely.
Couple on a run.
Absolutely.
That's fun. I like that angle.
Could I just throw like a twist in it just for the sake of considering it? Could it be like Aura Singh? Because I isn't there? I know there's something. I haven't finished Clone Wars, which is maybe blasphemous to say at this stage of this panel, but I think they interact in Clone Wars. Am I wrong in that Boba Fett and Aura Singh interact at one point?
They do. She's a solid, 30 years older than he is. But I mean, anything, not to knock that. You do your thing.
I mean, listen, Anakin was like just 8 years old in episode 1 and then 18 in episode 2, and Padme was the same. So
yeah, and that's fine.
I think we can take some liberties with the.
Don't make fun of that, Julian.
So
that was true love.
So you said in between. What was your time period again? You did it in between.
Post Revenge of the Sith, before A New Hope.
So at this stage, how old would Boba Fett be at this stage?
So Boba would be between like 12 and 18.
Okay, like so he's very much kind of come into his own as a man, maybe potentially pubescent. I don't know how
there's some dangerous ages there to be playing in a romantic movie, Julian.
that's fair.
I don't know. Let's have him be 18.
Why don't we just make him 18? Why don't we just say that he's 18?
Let me 18.
Thank you, radar technician. I appreciate that. That's a very astute observation.
Yeah, I think that's fun. I think I guess it's not strictly a romantic comedy if it's like Bonnie and Clyde, but I think sure. you could play fast and loose a little bit with some more comedic angles.
Here's something I want to throw at you because we are specifically going for a rom-com, and I think that genre has some more or less kind of general parameters that I feel like would be appropriate for that subgenre, right? Do you think that we're going to run into issues where the fan base or even just general audiences are going to have a hard time believing a character like Boba Fett, the way he's been framed up until this point, being in something that is a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more playful?
I think it would be fine. I think if you frame it in such a way that he is still coming into his own as a character, and this is a learning experience on the road to that, right? It's like so many of the early days comics for a lot of the DC and Marvel superheroes, right? It's like, and Boba Fett isn't a villain necessarily; he's an antagonist. In terms of film canon, we really don't know much about him, right? We fill it out in our heads. We fill it out with expanded universe material, but what we see in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi isn't much. So I think we can play this out very well.
I like the idea that this might be a formative experience for him in terms of really solidifying his sort of like cold demeanor, like the betrayal that he experiences at the end of this movie after opening up his heart to someone would send him on the path to being the cold, calculated Boba Fett we know, who collects bounties and has no regard for his enemies.
That's something I didn't really think about until you brought that up, though. Can we think of any really iconic rom-coms that have a definitively downer ending?
All of them. Because everyone dies in the end.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I'd like to find a way to end this on a bit of a brighter note. I guess that it's tough though, because we're setting this in a very specific point in time where we kind of know where Boba Fett ends up. And Miranda in the chat, that's a very astute observation. 500 Days of Summer, I think, did a very good job of playing with the parameters, or I guess the genre hallmarks of a rom-com, but eventually kind of leading away from that and subverting it. Okay. I want to put this one on ice real quick because I like where we're heading with it. Can I pitch you a completely alternate, wild left field potential angle for this?
I'd be offended if you didn't.
What if we switch the time periods from not between the prequel and original trilogy, but to the time period between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy? And I'm recalling the point at which they announced the Mandalorian and the series The Mandalorian. A lot of people were speculating, oh, maybe that's Boba Fett behind the helmet. Maybe he survived and he has new armor or something like that. And I think the thing that people were keying into was that we don't really know what happened to Boba Fett, and we've only really seen him as an adult in the armor, so we don't really know what he looks like. He could be any number of people within the universe. What if I would posit to you that in the aftermath of Return of the Jedi, maybe 5, 10 years down the line, uh, someone with Boba Fett's armor has been popping up on the scene, maybe on Tatooine, maybe wherever, kind of making a big scene because it's Boba Fett and he's back, and maybe this guy pulls off an incredible thing and he impresses a person that he's interested in, and they form a relationship and they form a romantic pairing, and that they're going through the courtship of dating. But we realize very early on that whoever's in the armor is not actually Boba Fett. They just found the armor.
Whoopsie.
Oh no, we lost
Did we
Ryan.
lose Ryan?
That was not a reflection of the quality of his pitch. Just so everyone.
No,
knows.
it definitely was. We cut him off right when it was getting to that was a.
Oh yeah, okay.
I didn't like your pitch.
I wanted
Ryan.
to save face.
We
I wanted
voted
to
you
save
off
face.
That's fair. That's fair. Am I back though?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. But we learned
Yeah, you're
very,
right.
very early on that it's not Boba Fett within the armor. It's some guy who just found the armor that got coughed up by the Sarlacc and has been taking on the role because it impresses people. And now he's formed this relationship with this person who he really cares about, but they think he's a completely different person. And so you have to kind of get to this point where at what point do you tell that person? And they have, the hijinks of a romantic comedy where, can this relationship survive the revelation that it was all sort of built on a lie?
I love that because I was going to say the one thing I feel like we have to play with, like the one of the key hallmarks of any romantic comedy is like if you walked it through beat by beat, it's like the initial meeting, the sort of courtship and the falling in love, and then you always have the sort of like revelation or the betrayal or the thing where you weren't telling the truth, or not all the information was on the table, and the split, and then the eventual reunion after we work through those things. So that this is the perfect. I think this is a great version of that, where it's like, this person has now built a life and I think you could maybe play with it too, where in addition to the fact that the revelation that he's not Boba Fett would let this person down that he's connected with, it potentially would also have hairy consequences for him in terms of just survival, because
right. I mean, he's probably not a Mandalorian. He probably doesn't know how to use this suit. And I think that's where a lot of the comedy could come from, where he's unintentionally being heroic in this suit and pulling off some cool stuff, but he has no idea what's going on.
Totally. And then he's sort of building up a mythos for himself as like the return of the famed bounty hunter Boba Fett, and so he's able to maybe get through certain scenarios just on the back of his reputation, when really he's very, very scared, and in those situations, like I'm imagining sort of a cantina set thing where he gets into a confrontation, and when someone realizes that it's like recognizes the armor, they back away quickly, but really he's like scared out of his mind and can't, and he gets through that confrontation just purely on the back of the false reputation that he's established. That's fun. I like that angle a lot.
It feels very much like a 90s Leslie Nielsen type spoof almost, and I'm all for it.
Is he available?
Even, I don't know, play with the I don't think so.
All right, we'll find some.
I don't think so. He passed away 10 years ago. But...
All right, Julian, do you want to take this next one?
Well, can I
Oh, do you have a title? Okay.
It's called
we haven't done titles.
Fed Up with Love. Star Wars.
In any other pitch, that would get you kicked out. But I feel like it's just kind of appropriate for this idea.
It almost feels like this is a Pixar style movie where it's just outlandish visuals at every given moment.
That would be fun.
And I'm pitching that as a real idea. Like that's what I'd love to see.
Yeah, that visual palette feels like it would lend itself very well.
Before we move on, for anyone coming in late, we are currently pitching some outlandish ideas for Star Wars movies and TV shows that are being generated at random for us. I see a couple dozen of you on the Facebook side. If anyone wants to jump over and join us on the Get Vocal side, we are raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation this entire weekend. And there'll be a link in that chat that can tell you a little bit more about what's going on there. Julian, you want to take this next one for us?
Can I? Yeah, I would love to. Can I just throw something out there real quick?
Please.
Either right now before you give me this next pitch, or coming at the end of this pitch. But Peter, his little stuffed animal that he was just sort of bringing onto the screen, kind of just, I don't know, just sparked something on me, and I was wondering if I could just run with an idea real quick.
Oh, please! These are our best ones.
And then if it's completely like off reservation, we can just go back to the patented algorithm. Although the algorithm feels like it's maybe targeting us with some specifically difficult options lately.
It's been a little mean today.
It's been a little mean. The Star Wars universe is obviously known for, amongst many other things, its fantastic bevy of creatures. There's obviously like every new movie brings with it from cute to scary a wide variety of these amazing critters and animals. I had this idea like a while ago, and that just reminded me. I would love a Star Wars, like just a very standalone Star Wars movie that's basically like fantastic Zillow beasts and where to find them, but like not the way they did Fantastic Beasts, where it was actually just a backdoor Dumbledore Grindelwald pilot story, but like true, like what I imagine Fantastic Beasts was going to be for the Harry Potter universe, like that, but like follow a archaeologist or a, maybe that's not the wrong, maybe like a just a documentarian, like someone coming from some, lowly planet, and they're just trying to make their way in the universe, and they really want to just put together this amazing comprehensive holocron containing the details of every amazing species and creature in the galaxy. We could go on this fantastic adventure that has nothing really to do with the Force or Jedi or Sith or any of the wider conflict, but it's just this amazing adventure to sort of catalog the fantastic creatures that exist in the Star Wars universe. I think that could be really fun.
I absolutely love that. That's fantastic.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it could be really fun, like kind of a mini series or even just regular series format, where every week it's a different animal, a different planet.
I think like go ahead.
Well, and what? Oh, no,
I think the conflict could come from because every story needs a little bit of conflict. I think it'd be, since you mentioned series, I think it'd be fun to do sort of like a case of the week, and it really, his goal is to document, but he ends up getting involved in sort of hairy circumstances. But the way that Newt is very in tune with animals and in tune with creatures, that same level of animal whisperer, creature whisperer, this central character could have that element and could help solve these problems. Village is having an issue with I don't know, what were the creatures in The Last Jedi that they rode, the sort of antelope looking creatures that they rode, the like,
I think the technical term is space horse.
Space horse, sure. Yeah, that sounds accurate. But yeah, like he could sort of, he or she could address these fun cases each week, sort of creature of the week style.
I'm into it.
I love this. I mean, because it's already established that Jedi can have very in tune connections with animals, certain Jedi, and I would pitch it as, we said it prequel era, and you have a Jedi who maybe isn't even strong enough in the Force to be a Jedi, right? He or she has a connection with animals, but that's about it. So they can't complete the training. Maybe they don't even become a Padawan learner, right? They get expelled from the academy before they find a master. They never find a master, right? So what happens to those Jedi? They have Force connection, but they're not good enough to, take on Mace Windu or anything. So he or she becomes an animal carer, and they go around the galaxy at first just to take care of animals. Like, that's what their life mission is to be. But then, as we constantly see in Star Wars, criminal elements keep on taking these animals and using them for their own purposes. So they become this weird, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an anti-poaching vigilante type person, where they're just going along and constantly getting involved with these criminal organizations, trying to take them down to save these animals, right? And then we see all these horrible monsters that in the Rancor or the Sarlacc, but instead of looking at them as horrible things, we suddenly are having to look at them as good, and this character loves them and wants to protect them and save them from their evil criminal.
I think we could make Baby Sarlacc the next Baby Yoda. That's a merchandising opportunity right there. I want one.
If you really want a design challenge, make a Baby Rathtar cute. That's my challenge to you, whoever the concept artist is on this series. But I like this a lot. I particularly like, Peter, your concept of like a sort of a failed, for lack of a better word, a failed Jedi trainee, because we don't ever see that. I mean, we only ever follow people that are somewhat chosen ones, or at the very least like proficient enough to be protagonists in a story. But we never really follow what happens.
Right.
Well, we never really follow what happens to the people who aren't chosen by masters to become Padawans or don't pass through that process. And with the exception of like a Maz Kanata, we don't really often deal with people who are Force sensitive that aren't Jedi or Sith or aligned with those two factions, you know. So that feels actually really fun.
Yeah, growing up, I read there's a series of young adult novels that was put out in conjunction with Episode 1, and I forget who wrote them. Forgive me, but they were quite good. And the premise of it was that Obi-Wan Kenobi was very late to be chosen as a Padawan by Qui-Gon.
Oh yeah.
And he was like right on the edge. Have you read these two? That's
I remember. Yeah, I remember talking about.
He was like right on the edge of joining this like core of failed Jedi who are kind of exiled to farming planets and are told to help agricultural purposes, and he was just desperate to find a master to teach him the rest of the Jedi ways, because there was this huge conflict. Like sometimes you're in with the Force and you're on your way to becoming a master. Sometimes you just have a bit of a connection with the Force. There's a threshold, there's a scale to this whole thing, and I just love that idea because it just helps to connect you so much with that character, and I never forgot it. I was like, man, this is amazing. I want to see more for
sure.
And realistically, like in the universe of Star Wars, even within the canon, Force ability, Force power, Force skills, they don't always manifest in the ways that I think the Jedi Order typically looks for, which is, you can jump really high and swing a great sword, right? I think someone who has a very deep and interesting relationship with nature, or their ability to kind of commune with spirits and the spiritual aspect around nature, I think that's something that might be overlooked by the Jedi Order, especially of this era, and could manifest in an interesting way throughout the series. That this is actually a very powerful person, a very interesting person. It just wasn't the skills that a Jedi Order would be looking for.
Oh, go ahead.
What? Yeah, you could just sense I was about to say something.
I
know. Well, and that's such a plot point that often gets overlooked in the prequel trilogy, is that the Jedi Order are located on Coruscant, which is a huge metropolis, and the Jedi have lost touch with their more spiritual nature element to them. And so I think it would be brilliant, because then you'd have, not only is this Jedi failed from the Jedi Order, but they're also kind of going against the current methodology of the Jedi, which is to be a bit more political, a bit more too entrenched in their way. So they're constantly advocating for a bit more of a naturalistic, spiritual approach to it. You could even throw in Qui-Gon at some point, because Qui-Gon is meant to represent the older ways of the Jedi that the Jedi have lost. And so he could become a character later on. Even Count Dooku could come in, because Count Dooku, of course, was the master of Qui-Gon. So there's lots of ways to touch on the larger Star Wars canon here, just not in ways that you would always
expect. It's tough to be a nature Jedi when you live on Coruscant, so I think it could be very easy why you would seem like a dropout.
You know what? Who I think would be a great touch point character? You're mentioning some of the legacy characters. It's a character that I've always loved, and I feel like doesn't really get a lot of shine other than in a couple of the Darth Vader comics that I've read. But Yocasta Nu, I think, would be the
could be kind of like a mentor sort of character, right? Because that would be, I feel like, the one character in the Jedi Order that would recognize that person's potential and the potential 100%. To do good in the universe.
100%. And
really, I thought she would be she's like a Professor McGonagall type character. Like, I think she would be more of an antagonist.
I feel like she would have a knowledge of
just like telling him to shut up and get out of the library.
That's what powers could be that might not be appreciated.
No, I think she could be a fun touch point. And we're setting it. We mentioned prequel, so we would have the a young actress to play that role as a younger Yocasta Nu.
Sure.
Before we move on, I just want to point out an idea in chat from Melissa. She was hoping the rom-com would be Boba Fett meeting someone in the Sarlacc's stomach, finding love in unlikely places, which, why are we doing this show, guys? We're so bad at this. That's the idea. That's the concept. Oh,
that is
what a
fantastic. Could that movie get played as a bottle film? Like the entire thing takes place in the Sarlacc.
It's a full rom-com where they're dating and they're breaking up and then they're getting back together, but it's taking place in like the 6x6 setting of A Starlack stomach. I love that. That's much better than our
It's
idea.
my dinner with Andre, except for you are the dinner.
And you know how I think you could actually make that work is as they're getting to know each other and maybe sharing some of each other's greatest exploits. It could be very fun to do like extended flashback sequences of like Boba Fett talking about like, and then I went on this mission, I did that, and we get that full thing play out, and she's like, yeah, but no, I was there too, and that's not how it went down. Like, and then we would get these like fun, heightened versions of the recollection of those events, and they would get to go back and forth on those things. I think that, and that way you're not stuck literally in the Starlight pit for an hour and a half.
That's fun. That's a way better day than ours.
Where else do you want to be, Julian?
It's brilliant.
All right, Julian, you want to head us off on the next one?
Yeah.
All right, let's
me.
plug it in. Boop, 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 boop. Let's write a Star Wars story. Could we set it during the original trilogy? And I'm getting an email from the studio right now. They're saying that Damon Lindelof is orbiting the project, and he's very interested in something that feels horror-y, like a little bit of a horror element, but with a very strong mystery box appeal. So can we find something in the original trilogy, feels a little bit like horror, and has a very strong mystery box at its center?
My mind immediately went to the dumpster monster in the Death Star, in the first Death Star. And the
Dianoga.
I was is that what it's called? The Dianoga?
That's what it's called.
Dianoga. Am I saying that right? Dianoga. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was going to move on from that thought, and then it percolated in the 3 seconds that you repeated the prompt, and I'm actually kind of interested.
As I wasn't listening.
I'm actually kind of interested in a Death Star set film following a group of either maintenance staff and or stormtroopers just sort of hanging out, just doing their job, basically, like very much like a day in the life sort of thing. But the myth or the fable of the Dianoga sort of starts to become more prominent throughout all of their and they're like, we didn't put this thing there. We don't know why there's a thing in the trash can, and it's eaten like 3 or 4 people now. And like this is becoming legit, and then I really see the horror the horror vibes of that start to play out, and I think it might be fun for for that segment of the Death Star to maybe be shut down for maintenance, like routine maintenance, and have a group of staff. A couple of them are stormtroopers, a couple of them are officer, maybe one officer, and then some like a group of people get trapped in that wing of the Death Star with this Dianoga, this creature, and it's normally not really an issue because they have ways to deal with it, but because they're stuck and the power has been shut off and they're in a maintenance scenario, they would all of a sudden be forced to sort of fight for their lives. And it's the idea of having this like very, very high stakes intimate story for this group of people happening at the same time that if you zoomed out there's like a galactic war, and so like nobody cares about this, but when we're in it we're like, man, this is really intense and scary for these people. That seems kind of fun.
I'm really resonating with the idea of setting it on the Death Star, maybe even like the Death Star as it's being constructed, because I feel like the scale of that construction project, you could very easily see a situation where if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're just stuck there. You're just isolated. You're in a wing of the Death Star that's coming under construction, that the next maintenance crew isn't coming back for 2 weeks, and you just have to be there. And if you were to be stuck there with something that's potentially terrifying, I think that really amps up the stakes of you're not going anywhere. You're stuck on this inactive space station in the middle of nowhere. No one outside of Imperial top brass and the construction crews knows it even exists. There's no help coming. It's just you.
Actually, can I pitch a twist on that really quick? I think I was anchoring it in the Dianoga. I'm thinking that actually could just be a portion of it, like it could be an element of like the main purpose. So sorry, let me back up. What I'm thinking now is we set it. Yeah, I love the idea of setting it in the under construction Death Star. So the second Death Star, and you've got a group of construction workers, and then presumably you could include some just people that are there for security, and just a couple different characters from different walks of life in the Empire. And they're, like you said, I really keyed into on when you're talking about this sort of isolated, no one really knows it's there, no one is really paying attention to them, and they're stuck in space and alone for like extended periods of time just working on the construction of this thing. And I love the idea of taking maybe a psychological horror take on that, where it's like, what does that do to someone's psyche to be on the edge of space working on this thing for hours and hours, like, and the hallucinatory aspect of that, and then maybe have it be someone starts killing people in and around this construction site, and it becomes a little bit of like a who's the murderer, who's the serial killer, and then the Dianoga sort of thing could be he could trap certain people in that trash room at one point. With the monster, and that maybe is a set piece, but I kind of am more now gravitating towards the idea that it's very much this sort of group of people. No one's quite sure which of them is gone crazy and like fully lost it, but it's all set on the creepy, like incomplete skeletal structure of the second Death Star way before it's finished.
I got like some Event Horizon sort of vibes going on.
Yeah.
Yes. let me plus this up a bit more. In the expanded universe canon, it's talked about how the Death Star was built in the what's called the Maw, which is off the planet of Kessel, which is a gigantic nebula. No one can get through it, but at the center of it is this little pocket, and it's surrounded by black holes. And so it's this pocket of space that's surrounded by black holes on every side. And and that's where the Death Star is built, and we could easily set it there. And like, what is the effects of this crazy time altering, gravitational vortex of space that these scientists and stormtroopers and construction workers have to be in for a certain amount of time. That. So like, that's Act 1, and then we go full like the Thing. The Dianoga is it's established in canon, sure, but we could easily throw in a certain like the Thane element to it, make it a very Carpenter-esque horror movie type vibe to it, and it has run of the entire ship. We figure it's in the trash compactor because that's where food is at for it, but we also figure it has to have access to other parts of the ship because the trash compactor compacts at some point and it doesn't die. So obviously it has its own way out, or it's able to like mutate its form so that it doesn't get compacted with the rest of the trash. So you could easily throw in a certain like Carpenter-esque monster horror element into it. And I'm really digging this. We could have a lot of fun.
How much do we know about the Dianoga canonically? Like I'm asking because would it be breaking canon if I was to just add some abilities to it for the sake of our movie and just say like it maybe can invade the body of a host? Like,
I think you could say it. We know it has a large eye.
It's a large eye. So
that's what I mean. Because it has a large eye. It has tentacles. There's a few artist renderings to it, but not much is known.
Do we have some room to sort of take some artistic license on it and just sort of, because then you could really kind of go a Thing angle and or like you could go almost Body Snatcher approach a little bit and then then you really play up the psychological horror. But I really love the idea of this sort of like a quiet meditative film with distinct elements of horror, and it's reminding me a little bit of like visually I imagine sort of like elements of Ad Astra, where it's sort of towards the tail end of Ad Astra, which I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but just spoiler alert just in case. But kind of when he's traveling in that final leg of his journey, Brad Pitt is traveling to, is it Neptune that he's trying to find his father? And wherever he's going to end up, and he's like stuck for extended periods of time by himself in that ship, and we get those like, it's like a combination of narration and weird like cuts and hallucinatory cross dissolves, and like that sort of visual palette I think really strikes me as something interesting to do in this kind of film.
You struck me on something with the possession angle, and we're running a little bit short on time here, but I just want to throw a curveball out and just see if it lands anywhere in the ballpark. We've sort of got the angle of a alien, the Thing kind of a creature horror angle. We got a little bit of this psychological Event Horizon angle. What if we sort of meshed it all together and made this kind of medley of different horrors? What if we added to that a ghost story angle? Here, let me pitch this to you. Let me just pitch this far field angle. We've got these people that are working on the Death Star as it's being constructed. We saw in Rise of Skywalker that the Emperor kind of had this little chamber in next to his throne room where he just kept a bunch of junk, just stuff that he wanted, right? It's presumably evil stuff, right? What if this group is essentially they are facilitating the arrival of one of Palpatine's hordes that he's storing away on the Death Star, his collection of random kitchen things like that. And so they're sort of like the logistics team that are unloading these shuttles that are filling up the Emperor's throne room. And during that, they realize that a lot of weird things are happening. This Dianoga creature maybe is stalking around the station. People are going missing. People are going crazy. They're seeing weird visions. And we come to realize over the course of the story that one of the things they've unloaded off this shuttle is this tomb of this ancient Sith master. and their spirit is still residing within the tomb, and it's sort of infecting the entire environment and trying to get it free and take over a host or something like that, or be rejoined with their body or with their weapon or something. And maybe the last arc of the movie, the last act of the movie, is essentially this Sith ghost finding their corporeal form and it becoming like Alien at the very end, where this crew has to unite and stop this resurrected Sith Lord from rampaging through the station and being reunited with their body or reunited with their weapon or whatever it is to come into their full power.
Did you read the? I'm looking it up right now just to make sure I get the right name. Did you read the? I believe it was the Charles Soule Darth Vader comic run where at a point in time Darth Vader has to interact with the mask of
right,
Momin.
yeah.
Yeah, it's giving me that kind of vibe where we could even go the Momin angle, but I like the idea of maybe kind of just taking like adapting that portion, and I love the tomb
I just
angle
like the idea of like
spirit.
Why are things going wrong in this station construction project that we assume things have been going fine for? And I like the kind of idea of this dark force infecting the station and manifesting in weird and strange ways.
That's fun.
Well, it's always the aim for the Sith to attain eternal life, right? So you could play that angle a little bit. Throw in a little Dracula angle to it, right? He's haunting the place because he's trying to get their life force to attain immortality, right? I'm getting a bit of Stargate out of this too. I like the Stargate vibe, and yeah, there's a lot of legs here.
Maybe it's not a tomb; it's a prison, and they've accidentally unleashed him, and he's continuing his quest for eternal life.
Is there a version of this where I'm thinking about the movie Pandorum, which is kind of like a very indie sort of maybe not indie, but like
very underrated.
I don't know too many people that have like that are like deep Pandorum stands, but I love the fact that in that movie, and spoiler alert, it becomes clear that the ending is that they've actually already been on the planet that they were supposed to travel to for like, you know, that they thought they were still traveling to that planet to reestablish humanity, but they've been actually there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Is there a version of this story where we don't know that it's on the Death Star until like we just kind of jump into it and it's not clear where it's set until the very end, and we kind of pull out and really like the when we know that it was such a small scale thing happening in such a remote part of a gigantic station that's part of a much larger narrative, and like that the dwarfing scale almost has sort of like a horror vibe to it too, as the once we establish the context that it's in at the end of the movie, you're like, oh man, and none of this was even that big of it. Like, how horrific was this? And it was just this tiny blip on the radar, and that thought is even more horrific. You know, like, is there a version of it where we can get away with that, or do you think it's important that the setting be established?
I mean, it's sort of retrospective or retroactively recontextualizes the Death Star itself, right? Because it's not just the on-screen atrocities that we've seen, but it's actually host to bloodshed and carnage well before we've even seen it activated. And I think there's a fun little haunted house angle there of this, the repeated setting of hauntings from here on out.
Yeah, potentially even the Death Star 2, because I feel like that ship differentiated itself a bit from the first one, where it was a little more of a dark fantasy vibe to the place, right? I don't know if you guys ever read the Dark Empire comic book series, but that really played up the kind of horror fantasy element of the whole thing. And there was just some fantastic imageries you could play with, you know, the archaic Sith culture and how that manifests itself. We could really have fun with this because, too, your main characters are Sith, or not Sith. They're stormtroopers. They're Imperials, right? And so interesting to have those are your heroes. Those are the people you're starting with because you think these are evil, and then they're presented with even more evil things, and how that changes who they are.
Right.
This could be very interesting.
And I think you could even play up. Oh man, it'd be really cool at the end to kind of pull back out a little bit, zoom out, and find that Palpatine is just having fun watching. Like, he just did it on purpose, and he just does it because he's presumably got a lot of free time, and he just was having fun watching the spirit of this thing destroy these people in a contained environment, because that's how he passes time. I mean, that's like his hobby. And so, like, not only does the story effectively humanize the people, the sort of faceless members of the Empire that we're used to just thinking like stormtroopers are bad, you know, everyone who works there is bad. It's sort of like, no, these are humans, these are real people, and they just happen to be involved in this gigantic corporate entity, but so we humanize them at the same time that we add an extra layer of delicious evil to Palpatine, in that like this is just how he sadistically passes his time in between movies.
Well, you could even make it a bit more specific. He is running an experiment here. He's seeing how this ancient Jedi could attain eternal life himself, but he doesn't want to risk it himself. He wants someone else to do it for him. And then if he succeeds, then game on. He pulls the plug on the experiment and is able to do it himself with no problems, right? I also think, let me just pitch you on this. I think you need a Rebel Empire dynamic. So we have some rebel prisoners there at the beginning. The Imperials are transporting some rebel prisoners there. They're forced to team up throughout the movie to take down this larger threat. Right.
If we went through the angle that your angle of this being a Palpatine machination, then I think the Imperials involved would realize pretty well into that they are a part of the experiment as well. And whoops, like you guys are stuck here with us, and they have to by necessity kind of come together and try to survive this thing.
Oh man, and
it'd be a lot of fun.
If we sort of rounded out those characters, it'd be great to have. So you got rebel prisoner or prisoners. I think it'd be great to have two stormtroopers, one who is a like new recruit and one who is a clone that's being phased out. Like because there was that transition from clones to just general recruited stormtroopers. So that would be kind of a fun dynamic to explore as well. And then I do love this idea that they realize that they're privy to an experiment. I don't know if you guys saw that movie, these Underwater, that came out recently with Kristen Stewart. Kind of like an underwater horror vibe, but the end of the spoilers again, sorry guys, but the end of the movie, without getting into too much details, a lot of the characters either die or like a couple barely escape, but they do this final like flash of news coverage at the end of the movie to basically indicate that like nothing that they did had any consequence, and the company that was drilling and releasing these creatures in the sea is just going to continue their operations. And that kind of feels like exactly how this story would end, because we know that nothing they do is going to have any consequence in the wider context of the story, and so that they're part of this experiment, and their realization that Palpatine is a truly evil being will have no consequence on the wider machinations of the Empire as a whole, and it's sort of that despair that sets in where you're like, oh man, they went through all that for nothing is very
it's a lot of fun.
Tasty. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. It feels like the midpoint too has to be where the Empire is totally expecting a rescue party at some point.
Yeah.
And then our team receives word that like, oh no, there's no rescue coming. They're letting us die here because they don't want this to spread to the rest of the Empire.
All right, so we are running a little short on time now. This has been a lot of fun, but really quick, rapid fire in under a minute. We've got a couple ideas on the table. We got this, we got the time travel Terminator story. We got the rom-com with maybe Boba Fett. We've got this fantastic Vizsla beasts and where to find them. And now we have this sort of horror and the haunted Death Star angle. Out of those four, which one do you guys feel has the most potential to develop into the next stage, which would be a treatment and maybe a poster version?
Peter, what do you think?
Oh man, I mean, they're all so golden. I love, particularly though, I gravitate towards the Fantastic Beasts and the horror movie one. Screw my Boba Fett pitch. That was terrible. It's all about you, Julian. It's your day. It's I really love those two. I think both of them, and it's light side, dark side. So why, I'll pick both. I
mean, listen, don't give me too much credit. I just stole Terminator for the first pitch. I needed to get warmed up in my defense. I was getting warmed up, but I think I'm with you. Those two definitely resonated the most with me. I'm really liking this horror story. Like this one feels to me like the most filmable, I guess. Like that one is really, really resonating with me.
Death Star's haunted.
The horror film, the horror flick, it feels like a feature film, and the Fantastic Beasts feels like an ongoing Disney Plus series.
Sure.
And I love them both. They're great.
All right. Well,
so actually, we came away. That's great. We came away with both a film and a series. So I think we did our job here.
We just paid for our kids to go to college.
Awesome. Well, guys, we want to thank everyone who tuned in and who listened, and especially everyone who offered up some ideas. And really glad that you guys could join us. And this was a lot of fun. If you want to follow our podcast, you can find us on social at Let's Write Pod, and you can also check out our website, letswritepod.com. We put in addition to uploading our episodes there, we also do a lot of like posters and title treatments and additive visual stuff, and as well as our full scripts and treatments that we've done for previous projects. All that stuff can be found on our website. So if you are intrigued by this, definitely check that out. And we're very excited that you guys joined us. And we're very excited to do our first live version of the Let's Write podcast.
Absolutely. And for everyone who joined us on the Facebook end or the simulcast, also, thank you for showing up. If you want to jump into the Get Vocal side really quick, we are still raising money for Make-A-Wish. And if you donate through the link in the Get Vocal chat, Get Vocal will be matching 33% of all donations this entire weekend. So a great way to give back. And a huge thank you to all the volunteers that put on this amazing event and got this charity fundraising drive off the ground.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Just gonna wave like this.
Just gonna wave. Thank you guys so much for having me.